اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. 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 اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي ومن يكفر بالطاغوت ومن يؤمن بالله وقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم. صدق الله العظيم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. First of all, we just want to thank everyone for joining us on such a beautiful occasion and such a special night. And especially thank you to Maulana Aamir for taking the time to come to speak to us this evening. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him for everything that he does for the community. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to benefit from his presence and from such a gathering. Just a quick humble request for those brothers and sisters who are joining us from home. For those brothers and sisters who are joining us from home, we kindly request that you join via Zoom rather than YouTube, just to keep that level of interaction. And as well as the ladies in the ladies' musalla, we just request that you keep your camera off and your mic on mute. And any questions you have, just type in the chat box during the Q&A. So I hope everyone enjoys today's event. Jazakumullah khair.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wal-aqibatu lil-muttaqeen was-salatu was-salamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal-mursalin amma ba'd fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim bismillahir rahmanir rahim wal-'asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus solihati wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Sadaqallahu al-'azim. وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الوحدة خير من جليس السوء والجليس الصالح خير من الوحدة أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most gracious, the most merciful. Peace and blessings be upon Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Maybe imagine a person who works at a casino. Imagine someone who has a full-time job in a casino. Maybe the first month he is very pious. First month he won't gamble, right? Second month, but he continues working there. Eventually, I can guarantee that he's gonna gamble. Right? He's going to gamble because that environment is going to take over. That physical environment will have an effect on it. You understand? Or a person who works at a alcohol shop, right? Alcohol shop. He works there, but before going to work, he never had alcohol in his life. But eventually, over time, he keeps working there. There will come a time that he will use his employee discount to buy some alcohol on the cheap, and then he'll have it, right? So environment can do that. Very rarely you'll find a person in a bad environment, physical environment we're talking about, and he doesn't get affected, right? Now, in the hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us a general principle, right? He says that when it comes to physical places, so mentions that the best place in any city is the masjid. Okay? So masjid physical, it's inanimate, but it is still the best. And then the worst place are the markets in general. Casino is also considered a market. Alcohol shop, they're all considered markets, right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that the best place you could be in is the masjid, and then the worst place are the markets. So now, if you want to improve your environment, right, there's two ways of doing it. One is that a person living in a very cold environment, like you live in the Arctic, right? It's too cold. You could move to Florida, right? Warm, nice temperature, right? You could physically change your environment to have a better environment, or you could get a heater. You could just get a heater in your Arctic, right? Or in Canada, up super up north, you could get a heater, and then you can make a virtual environment, like a fake environment within your house, right? So now inside your house, you have it all warm. Outside the house, you have super cold, but inside the house, you have it warm. Similarly, maybe you could go to the masjid. Physically, you could go to the masjid, and you'll have the best physical environment. Understand? There won't be any harm at the masjid. You're going to be in the masjid, and then all the barakat and all the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descend at the masjid, right? And just by being there, nobody has to be in the masjid. You could literally be here alone, and you'll be benefiting from the masjid, right? Or if, let's say, masjid is too far, what do? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he advised that you build a musalla in your house. So inside your home, you pick a corner and then designate it as your musalla. So now every time you want to be at the best place in your home, just go to the musalla. Understand? And you'll notice that some places, they inspire you to do things, right? So if you're in the kitchen, if you hang out in the kitchen, you might get hungry. Let me get some snack, right? So similarly, if you have a musalla in the house and you go hang out in the musalla, you're going to want to, let me read some Quran, let me pray some nawafil, right? So that physical environment will have a major effect on you. Understand? So what we need to do is, first of all, if we are already involved in such a physical environment that is known to have a bad effect, we reduce our contact from that environment, right? So maybe with friends, we go to a certain place and then there's a lot of fitna in that area, physical, right? So we avoid that, right? We spend a lot of time at the market. We go for shopping, but then we also go to 5 different other stores, and then they have people dressed inappropriately. They have music blasting, right? We didn't need to be there. We could have just gotten our groceries and gone back home, right? We didn't do that, so we need to do that. We need to now make sure that we reduce our presence in this bad environment. The way when it's cold, we make sure we are comfortable, right? We get the best jackets, we get the best heaters, we make sure everything is up and running, everything is top notch. Similarly, we need to also make sure that we stay away from bad things that affect our spirituality, that affect our hereafter. Understand? So this is the one of the levels of environment which is physical, inanimate. Okay, so masajid are the best, and then markets are the worst. We need to avoid the markets, and we need to spend more and more time in the masajid. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that the person whose heart is connected to the masjid, right? He'll be one of the 7 types of people who have the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's arsh on the day of judgment. Imagine that. On the day of judgment, it will be so hot that people will be drowning in their own sweat, right? Imagine you Sweating so much that because of your sweat, like a puddle is formed, right? A pothole is formed, and then you're just drowning in there, and your sweat keeps coming, and you're almost about to drown. Imagine if you had the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's arsh on the day of judgment. We're all going to be running for that shade, right? So some people will automatically have that shade. So one of the category of people will be the people who are always attached to the masjid. So as soon as they are done with their task, as soon as they have any free time, oh, let me just run to the masjid. I'm just going to go do dhikr at the masjid. So if we can be those people, perfect. What more could you ask for, right? And when it comes to markets, we try to avoid markets, bare minimum. I'm not saying that we don't go to markets. Even the Anbiya went to the markets, right? You cannot say that, oh, I'll stop going to the market. I'll just go live in the mountain, right? I'll just separate from society. You cannot do that, by the way, right? Rasulullah, the Sahaba came to Rasulullah asking that, Ya Rasulullah, I just want to, disconnect from society, and I just want to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in just solitude. So some said, no, you need to live in society, you need to mingle among people, fulfill your responsibility as a husband, as a father, right? As a sibling, fulfill all of those responsibilities, yet at the same time you stay away from the wrong things. Okay? So that's the first level. Second level, one more thing regarding that, we also make sure that we stay away from just physical filth, physical being dirty, and lack of cleanliness. Because the ulama mentioned that, you know how when you go to the bathroom, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal khaba'ith. You guys memorized that yesterday? Yes? Right. So why do you say that dua? Because the bathroom is supposed to be a filthy place, right? And wherever there's filth, it attracts filth. It attracts jinnat, shayateen, right? It attracts that. So when we stay clean and we stay away from filthy places, we also keep ourselves protected from shayateen. Understand? So that's another aspect of our physical, inanimate things. If we make sure that we stay away from them, like when we go to the public bathroom, right? So first of all, we try to avoid, but if we have to, then we make sure we clean it up first, right? Try to clean it, and then we make sure we say our du'as before entering. Understand? So that's another level of staying away from bad environment. Okay. Next up is, so that was inanimate. Now let's look at animate, yani living beings, right? So when it comes to living beings, our environment could consist of who? People, right? Animals, like insects and everything, right? But among all of them, who do we interact with the most? Just people, right? Human beings. We interact with them the most. And among the human beings, who do we interact with the most? Go ahead. Family, right? And then after that, friends, yes. And then co-workers, yes. Classmates, right? And then neighbors, right? So all of these, they together combine to become our environment, right? So if they're all good, imagine if they're all good, then you'll be good. A person's personality, like your personality, my personality, it's combination of these people, these experiences, these interaction, right? So when a baby is born, right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that everyone is born upon fitrah. Fitrah. You guys know what fitrah means? No? Who knows what fitrah means? Yes. Yeah. So basically your natural way of viewing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your natural connection with the Creator, right? So it mentions that everyone is born upon the right way. So if you leave everyone, like when people are born, they grow up without any outward influence, good or bad, they'll just grow up to be Muslim. They'll just grow up to believe in one Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Understand? But Rasulullah mentions that, but the parents, what they do is they either turn the child into a Christian, a Jew, right? Or a fire worshipper, or an atheist. The parents do that. If the parents don't do that, in nowadays society, parents might not be able to do that, right? They might not do that. But then who does it? The friends, right? Or the classmates or the college professor. So all of these are influences, and they cause a person to move away from their fitrah. Understand? So someone's telling us that. So from a young age, if we can make sure that all of these are protected, all of these environments are protected, then a person stays upon fitrah. The person will stay upon fitrah. Understand? So now, among the people that we associate with, after parents, sure, the parents might ruin a person, but then once the child grows up, he goes to school, he makes friends, right? Now, when he mingles with friends, makes friends, if he has good friends, they could completely undo what the parents did, right? Maybe the parents taught him they didn't raise him well, but somehow he ends up with good friends who can influence him, then he could totally fix it. They could fix him. Understand? Or if he was good, the parents raised him good, right? But he goes and has bad friends, then the friends could totally undo everything that the parents did. Understand? So friends have a huge role. Friends, basically, when you have a friend, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that الرجل على دين خليله. A man is upon the religion of his friend. A man is upon the religion of his friend. So Rasulullah mentions that make sure that you pay attention who you make as a friend. Understand? Make sure that you pay attention to who you make as a friend. If you, in general, if you have a group of friends, right? They're all involved in drugs, or they all like to steal, right? So now in their discussion, when they're sitting down, having just hanging out time, what are they going to talk about? They're going to talk about a new drug, right? What else? How to steal. They're going to mention, oh, this one place I went, this is how I stole this item, right? That's the conversation. Now, if you join that group, first day you're going to find it weird, right? What is this? And then you might back out. But if you persist, you might like it, right? Eventually, that whole stealing is not a big deal to you. Eventually, that stealing is not a big deal, and there will come a day that the person might just go and steal. Understand? There will come a day that the person might just go and take that drug, consume that drug. So that friendship makes a huge difference. Friendship makes a huge difference. I'll mention another hadith regarding, just a general hadith regarding environment. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that the similarity of good company and bad company is, so he's giving us an analogy, okay? So I'm saying that similarity of good company is like the owner of oud or musk. He says musk, owner of musk, right? Let's say you have a shop, you sell musk, right? So it mentions that you could give me some as free, as a gift, so I'll benefit from it, right? Or I could buy some from you and I'll benefit from it. Or worst case scenario, I'll come to you, I'll meet you, and then I'll leave, but I'll still have the fragrance. You understand? I'll leave smelling good. Understand? So something will happen, something will brush off. Like their minimum, with good company, you'll get some benefit. On the flip side, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that the example of bad company is like a blacksmith. You know what a blacksmith is? Who knows what a blacksmith is?
It's like somebody who does metalworking.
The metalwork, yeah. So it involves a lot of fire, right? Because you have to heat the iron to melt it, right? So Susan mentions that the example of bad company is like going to a blacksmith. What's going to happen is that if you stay too close, you're going to burn your clothes. Understand? You stay a little bit further, you might get some sparkles right here and there, burn your skin here and there. Worst case scenario, or actually best case scenario, you might come out with a burning smell. At least you'll come out with a burning smell. Understand? You cannot leave from there without having any effect. Something will happen. Worst case scenario, you'll burn your clothes or you burn a skin. Best case scenario, you'll come up with a stench from there. Understand? So Rasul is telling us that's the example of bad company. Good company is like a perfume shop, right? You go to a fragrance shop, they'll give you they'll let you try it out on a piece of paper. So you'll come up with some good from there, right? Even if you don't benefit all the way, but some benefit might still be there. So that's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling us that make sure you have good company. When it comes to people, make sure you have good company. Now, when it comes to friends, either you influence the other person or they influence you, right? There's no such thing as no influence, right? There's group of friends, the one that's the most confident among them and the most maybe the one who speaks a lot, right? He's the one who's able to convince the other friends, right? So if you can tell that your religion is not getting better, right? You're not benefiting, you're not getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does that mean? Maybe there's something wrong with your group friend circle, right? Maybe there's something wrong with your suhbah, your environment, friends. So as soon as you change that, you'll see a difference, right? So at least the least you could do is stay away from them. Now what you could do is once you become better, once you become knowledgeable, once you have your own religion better, sure, then you can go back. You could go back and try to influence them, right? Nowadays, you see young people, when you tell them to stay away from bad influence, bad group, they'll say that, oh, I'm trying to do dawah. I'm trying to influence them. But little do they know that on the flip side, they're the ones who are getting influenced by them, right? So they're not getting better. They're just getting worse in the hopes of fixing the others, right? You're trying to fix someone else, however, you're just getting worse. Understand? So the best course of action over there is to just separate from such majlis. So now affixed to that, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that just solitude is better than bad company. Solitude is better than bad company, and it also mentions that good company is better than solitude. Right? Just general principle that if you realize that you're in bad company, you'd rather just be alone. You'd rather be the one who doesn't have friends. Understand? Be the one who doesn't have friends instead of being the one with bad friends. So Rasulullah is telling us to first take that step, and then Rasulullah is telling from that hadith that we mentioned about the dealer of fragrance, you go attain good company. You find the ulama in the town, right? You just find excuses to hang out with them. Whatever excuse it takes, just, oh, I want to serve you. Oh, maybe I could just be around you, right? Whatever it takes, spend time with the good company, in the good company. Then slowly, what's going to happen is their good habits will start coming to you. Understand? And I'll just mention one more thing that, in our life, the way to live life like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it takes training. You can't just know how to live perfectly without getting trained. Understand? So like when you take a class, like a physics class or chemistry class, right? There's a theory and then there's a lab, right? So similarly, you could read all about the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but if you don't acquire good company, you won't ever properly get that physical, the lab work. You understand? When you stay in good company, you get that practical aspect of it. Without the good company, you could read the books, you know the theory in your mind, but you don't know how to implement it. Understand? So even when you become a doctor, any field you go, they want you to spend time with the experts in that field. Understand? So similarly, we're here to live life and we don't know how to live life properly, right? So we spend time with the people who know how to live life, right? Once we spend some time with them, inshallah, slowly we'll know how to live life. Understand? Otherwise, it's just going to be trial and error. Understand? And worst case scenario, you might get into the wrong environment that will make things worse, right? That's why a lot of times the people who commit crimes, you look at their background, oh, they grew up in such a bad background, right? Surrounded with all sorts of criminals like them, right? But then you'll also find some people who became very good. They were born in that same environment, but they became good. What difference was that? What they did was at some point in their life, they decided to not hang out with those people. They decided to change their environment. And then that changed their whole life. It's made a U-turn, complete U-turn. So that can only happen if we can fix our environment. Lastly, I want to mention so now when people become in solitude, right? A lot of times if you have bad environment, let's say you're trying to transition, right, from bad environment to good environment, you're still looking for good environment. But a lot of times people are left in solitude, and what happens in solitude is that we go attain virtual environment. As soon as you're alone, what comes out? Your phone, right? So now right away you're in your virtual environment. So now you're no longer alone anymore. You're not in solitude anymore. Now you're in another realm, and that has its own good environment and bad environment, right? And it's the day of internet, and on the internet, its majority is bad. Understand? Even though people say that it's a age of information, it's also age of misinformation too, right? As easily you can acquire good information, you can also acquire bad information. It's like as easy, if not easier, right? So now when you go online, you have to tread carefully, right? Best is you just stay away, right? In your free time, the ulama, they'll recommend that as soon as you're free, just go in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just do adhkar, remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, recite the Quran, or just go in a good company. You don't have to do anything, just go. As soon as you're free, go get in good company. But now if you have to be online, then there are good company online too, right? There's scholars who preach online too. There's lectures online as well. So it's very difficult, but people do that. So you could go online, but you could have the good company online, right? But for that, you have to make sure that there's also misinformation. So you could think that you might be in good company online. A person might be giving you religious information, but he might be he might not have the right information about the religion himself, right? So he could misguide you indirectly, understand? So it's best to just stay away from it. Or if your local ulama who you have trust with, if they tell you that you could go listen to these scholars, then you could go to them, right? Another way of being in good company online is a lot of times when we listen to music, right, that's bad, right? On the flip side, you can listen to good nasheed, right? Listen to Quran. So these are ways of having good company while you're online. Best is to stay away from it, right? If you can't stay away from it, then also ulama recommend that if you're gonna go online, just be in public. Be in public. So especially for kids, nobody recommends having like a computer in their own room where they can lock the door and be on the computer, right? So have it in the living room, right? So everyone can access, right? As also mentions a general principle in life to distinguish between whether something is bad or not. Sometimes you're not sure if something is bad or not. So mentions that al-ismu ma haka fi sadrik. A sin is that which knocks on your chest. And so mentions وَكَرِهْتَ أَنْ يَطَّلِعَ عَلَيْهِ النَّاسِ, and that you dislike that the people found out about it. So whatever you're about to do online, imagine if people were to look at your screen. Would you want them to look at your screen or not? That's a litmus test. If you don't want them to look at your screen, you shouldn't be doing that. Understand? If you're okay with them looking at your screen, then you're doing something fine. Understand? So that's a rule Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us. Lastly, I want to mention a hadith. This also mentions here before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he meets Hanzala radiallahu anhu, and he says to him that, how are you doing? He says to him, how are you doing? So then Hanzala radiallahu anhu, he says that, nafaqa Hanzala, that I have become hypocrite. I have committed nifaq. So then Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he says, Subhanallah, how come? How come you're saying that? So then he says that, Hanzala radiallahu anhu responds by saying that, when I am in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I feel very high in terms of my iman, right? I'm very enthusiastic and I have the highest form of belief, right? And as soon as I leave his company, then I get distracted and then I don't have that much zeal, right? So then Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu says that, oh, that's the case with me too. When I'm with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when I'm in good company, I have all the enthusiasm to do all the good things, right? As soon as I'm away from it, then that enthusiasm is gone. So then they're like, let's go to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and ask him what's going on. Why is it like that? So then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that what you're feeling is good. It's true. Because imagine if you always stayed in that state of that spiritual high, right? So it says that if you always stayed in that state of spiritual high, if you never got that spiritual low, then you'd be in such a state that angels would come and do musafa with you at all times. You'll be 24/7 surrounded by angels. You'll be sleeping and there's going to be angels around you if you were in that high state at all times, which is good. Rasulullah also said that, but no, you cannot do that. You cannot always be in that high state. You must also fulfill your responsibility. So it says that go spend time with your family as well. They have a right. And then apart from that, you can spend time with my company. Yani you could pray and do all the good things, all the religious things, but at the same time fulfill your responsibilities. So basically, how does that apply to us? Is that if we have to be somewhere, for example, our work and all the different tasks that we do that we are responsible for, we have to go to college, right? So all of those things we must continue doing, but at the same time, we still make sure we have good company. Understand? So if we look at our life, we look at all the time we spent and how much of that is in bad company, and then we try to combat that. Let's say if we cannot get rid of it, let's say we work at a place where it's just a bad toxic environment and we're not able to quit that place, right? Or we go to public school, we're not able to come out of it, right? For some reason or another. So now we try to combat that with good environment, right? So outside of school hours, we make sure we go to the masjid. We make sure we spend time with ulama, sulaha, more and more time. So all the wrong that was done in the bad environment, you cancel that out and fix it with the good from the good environment. Understand? If you keep doing that, you'll build the strength that next time you're in bad environment, you'll be able to change that bad environment. Understand? Once you build that strength, you'll be able to go ahead. Then you'll become a good environment for the other people. Then they're going to want to be in your environment, and because of your environment, they'll benefit, inshallah. Understand? But as long as you cannot do that, you're not at that stage yet, you try to avoid bad environment completely, 100%. If you cannot do that, you supplement it with good environment as much as you can. You go to school, come back and go to the masjid. You spend 5 hours at school, you should spend several hours at the masjid or in good company or listening to good lectures. Understand? So if you don't do that, that bad environment will overpower you. There is no such thing as a person being in a constant state. A person is either getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or he's going away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And if you realize that you're not getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means you're already going away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Understand? It's like a hill, a mountain. It's either uphill or downhill. There's no flat. Understand? So we try the only way to be up, the best what do they call it? The best attack is offense, right? You don't be on the defense, you do on the offense. The more you do that, the more you have good company with the ulama, sulaha, the more you'll be able to ward off all the wrong, all the evil in the society, and all the evil of shayateen. You'll be able to ward all of that off, inshallah. And eventually there will come a time that you'll be a source of influence for the others, inshallah. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. We'll stop here. Any questions? Take questions. Question. The which environment? Oh, the jinn environment. So the jinn environment, initially I mentioned that when you're in a good physical environment, inanimate object, and an inanimate environment, that attracts angels. So if you have a good like masajid, they attract angels. If you have clean home, it attracts angel, right? And also when a person stays away from sins, right, it attracts angels. As a person it gets involved in filth and dirt, it involves in a lot of, the people who do magic and sorcery, they involve a lot of filth, right? They go collect poop and all sorts of filthy things. That's how they can attract jinnat and shayateen. Understand? So just automatically by keeping yourself clean, you're just repelling all of those forces 100%. So when a person goes to a sheikh that I'm having issues with the jinnat, right? The first thing the sheikh will mention that make sure you are always in a state of purity, always in a state of wudu, right? So that will automatically, most of the time, it will just keep you away from all the evil forces, and it will keep you in good company, inshallah. Other question? Comment? Yes.
What would you say about kids like in school or like who end up having like non-Muslim friends and that environment that their different cultures have to affect their like outlook on life and stuff?
Yeah. So yeah, that shouldn't happen. The parents are supposed to make sure that they monitor the environment of the children, right? So you might think that while the children are they're at home, you're providing them with the best environment, but as soon as they're gone, you're still responsible, right? So when who are their friends? Who do they hang out with in the school, right? During the break time, who do they become friends with? So how do you find those information? By becoming friends of your children yourself. Understand? So if we become friends of our own children, then they won't need other friends. They'll share everything with you, and then you can tell them that, hey, no, that if that's your friend, that friend has this bad trait, stay away from that friend. So we need to become friends of our own children. And yeah, non-Muslims, if you have friends, non-Muslims, it's not going to work out, because if your iman itself is not strong, and maybe they are a stronger believer of their own faith, they might affect you, right? If that conversation comes in, they'll mention their proofs of their religion, and you don't have enough knowledge about your own religion, you won't be able to back anything up. That's it. You've fallen. You have a doubt in your mind now, right? Imagine if you go debate with an atheist, and you don't have a solid background in your own religion, he'll put you in doubt, right? Other comment, questions? So someone asked a question that, how do you draw the line between befriending someone bad versus befriending someone to give them da'wah, right? So the question is how to figure out whether you're making someone friend to improve them versus that person is just bad, he's gonna ruin you, right? So first of all, if you want to do da'wah, there are different. You have to learn da'wah work as well, right? Da'wah is not something that anyone just can get up and I'm gonna be doing da'wah, right? Da'wah is a field, and you need to learn that field, right? Once you learn that field, then you can do da'wah. Then you can interact with non-Muslims, and then you can be friends with them, right? But not true friends, right? You cannot be true friends, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that you cannot take anyone as a wali except for a Muslim, right? So true friend can only be a Muslim. You could be acquaintances with that person, and you could try to give him dawah. And while you're giving dawah, if you don't see that there's any benefit happening, right? If sometimes some people are completely ignorant and they're not budging, right? So then you'll realize it right away. Then you just move on. You move on, right? But if you don't have the solid foundation of your dawah work, and then you're just making friends in the hopes that you'll influence them, that's not a good. Especially if they have bad habits, and then they don't have the proper aqidah, then they're gonna influence you, right? It's a one-way street. Either you influence them or they influence you. Other questions? You had a question? Huh? Smaller one, what's the question? Jinn and shayateen. Shayateen are the evil jinns. Huh? What about it? Jinn is a makhluk. There could be good jinn. The good jinn won't be called a shayateen. Right? The believing ones, they're just jinns. But then if a jinn follows shaitan, iblis, then he's also a shaitan. Different than humans? They're made out of fire. We cannot see them. So that's how they're, and then angels are also different, right? So now jinns could also, shaitan could also be in the form of a human. Right? If a human does bad things, then he is a shaitan. He is nothing better, right? If he's in the 100% in the influence of shaitan, iblis, then he is a friend of iblis, and he himself, you could call him shaitan, because he is doing the work of shaitan. He'll just continue the work of shaitan and iblis, right? So it could be humans or jinn. Other questions? Comment, someone would like to add something? Maybe Sheikh Omar. So if there's no questions, huh? If there's no questions, I'm going to start quizzing you guys. Your question. Yeah.
What is the best way for shayateen to save yourself from shayateen? Best way.
So you're keeping yourself clean, right? Yeah, so keeping yourself clean, your house clean, and then you always being in the state of wudu, right? And then reciting Ayatul Kursi, Surah Ikhlas, Surah Nas, right? A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, as much as you can, right? So these will inshallah repel. And then always saying Bismillah, right? When you enter the home, before entering the home, say Bismillah, then they won't enter the home. That's it, your home is free of shaitan, right? You forgot to say Bismillah, then the shaitan is going to say what? Oh, we have a place to stay the night. Understand? And then you forget to say, Rasulullah mentions, this comes in a hadith, that when you forget to say Bismillah before entering the house, shaitan says that we have a place to stay the night. That's it, we have a place. And then when you're eating dinner, forget to say Bismillah again, he says that we not only we have a place to stay the night, we have food too. Full package. Imagine that. So how do we ward him off? Just say Bismillah. Right? Anything that you do, right before you say Bismillah, and then shaitan will be gone. More questions?
So if your neighbors are non-Muslims, could you think that on the day of judgment, you won't be asked about the hukuk of the neighbors?
You used to
try to stay away from them because they're non-Muslims, and you will not
Stay away from them, but you still have to fulfill their responsibility. Yeah. So if they are in need, right? Maybe for example, they are disabled, right? And they need you to maybe they asked you to bring them grocery, then that's their responsibility upon you, right? So you fulfill their responsibility, but at the same time, you can keep your distance because of the, yeah. But ideally, you would learn your own religion properly and then to portray it to them, inshallah. Yeah. That way, you fulfill their right properly, the right of knowing about Islam. Another question.
Someone is a Muslim, but then they change religion or something else. Would they still have all those good deeds from before, or would they all be erased?
Erased. Yeah, all the good deeds gone. Yeah. Not a Muslim anymore, yeah. On the flip side, a non-Muslim accepts Islam, all of their bad deeds are erased, right? So there's like clean slate. One more question? Same question, yeah? Flip side, yeah. So non-Muslim accepts Islam, all the sins are gone, clean slate. Now someone might claim that, hey, someone might say, okay, let me become non-Muslim and then become Muslim. Is that a good idea? What's wrong with that? Who can tell me? Nifaq is there? Yes. Hold on. Let me mute here. Yeah. And also, when a person leaves the fold of Islam, what guarantee do they have that they'll stay alive to become back Muslim? Right? Imagine a person leaves the fold of Islam and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees death upon that person. It's gone, right? And also, the fact that he's playing with his belief so easily, it shows that he doesn't really have that strong of a iman to begin with. He's just playing around. He could just do tawbah, all of his sins are gone. He could just do tawbah, right? He doesn't have to go through that step. Other question, yeah.
So, you talked quite a bit about when you're not at school, what you should do. When you're at school, there's only so much you can do to avoid, I guess, the bad environment. What do you think you can try to talk about school? Like tips you have.
So during school, if you're not involved in a class, right? If you're not in a class or if you're not paying attention to a presentation, you just say Allah, astaghfirullah. First of all, do a lot of istighfar, right? Because when you do istighfar, then whatever mistakes that you're making, a lot of times it might be deliberate or unintentional. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive all of that, right? And then always remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, always remember subhanallah, alhamdulillah, Allah. Just always keep yourself in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that will inshallah give you a protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Or just remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching me, right? So maybe other people are not watching me, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching me, right? So whatever I do, I will be held accountable on the day of judgment. Okay? And tell your parents that, oh father, that this is what I have to go through. This is the benefit I'm getting from this school, and these are the harms that I'm getting from the school, right? So maybe if you could facilitate for me to just study at home, there's so many good home learning programs, right? Just enroll in that program. And there's like so many examples of people who studied in homeschooling programs and they did so well. Like a lot of them went to MIT, big colleges, just from homeschooling programs. So don't underestimate the teaching of the homeschooling programs, okay? But yeah, and then come back home, make sure you have a good connection with the masjid, so you could undo that, or you can at least have a balance, right? Other questions?
So I think this topic, the big example of this is how to do once you're angry, how do you deal with a Muslim and a non-Muslim? How would you recommend? For example, if a Muslim is cursing at you or saying bad things maybe if it's a non-Muslim is cursing you, calling you bad names, how should you respond to that?
So when first let's talk about Muslim, right? And if they curse at you, ideally, you don't curse them back, right? You have the right to take revenge, but if you don't take revenge, Rasulullah mentions that on the day of judgment, no, it's not the day of judgment. Rasulullah mentions that the person who lets go of his right, despite having the right of it, Rasulullah promised a residence in the middle of Jannah for that person. So if you just don't take revenge, even though you had full right to take revenge, you'll get a house specially made for you in Jannah. That's there. And because you're forgiving, then all the wrongdoings that you've done, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive them on the day of judgment. Right? You forgave other people. So now because of your forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive your shortcomings. So that's for Muslims. Even for non-Muslims you could do that, right? You don't have to curse them. And when you curse, it's like when a person is cursing, it's like they're spewing filth, right? They're just like imagine someone throwing poop. Like they're carrying poop and throwing at you. So would you want to do the same thing at them? Like you'd actually have to carry poop and throw it back at them, right? So you just don't even want to even reciprocate. You don't even want to reciprocate, right? Because by doing that same thing, you're just involving yourself in the same field that they're involved, right? So this also mentions that when these kind of ignorant people, they try to interact with you, you just leave them alone, move on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, إِذَا خَاطَبَكُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا, just say peace and then move on. When they try to interact with you, any ignorant person, just if you know that they're not going to listen. Sometimes if you explain the beauty of the religion, sometimes people might change. Sometimes if you say good things, they see the beauty of Islam through your reaction, right? But most of the time, if you just copy and paste what they did, there's no benefit. The overall equation, nobody benefits from that.
So would the non-Muslims demand their rights on the day of judgment?
The neighbors, yes, they could. Yeah, even the people around you, they could say that, hey, this person never mentioned about their religion to me, right? So that could be a question, yeah. That doesn't mean that because of that you'll enter into hellfire, but it could mean that some of your reward might be taken away, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, you can have your own excuse then that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my iman was not strong myself, right? But then later on when I worked on my iman, it became strong, then I did a lot of dawah work. So you could say that. But everyone should aspire to strengthen their aqidah, their knowledge. So then that would truly justify us being in this country. Understand? If we're here just surrounded by non-Muslims, if we're just going to be in our own bubble, right? One is that to save ourselves from that. That's understandable. But eventually, we're supposed to strengthen our iman and our knowledge so much that we benefit everyone from us, right? That way we'll be able to spread this gift of Islam to everyone, right? Then we can truly say that, here we are in this country, we're fulfilling the right of being here, away from home, Make dua, inshallah.
If you have any more questions, you can send an email to the office or.
Okay, inshallah.
Which they don't.
Okay. All right, let's make dua, inshallah. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام وتبارك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're here in this majlis. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we discussed about improving our environment and saving ourselves from bad environment. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, aid and assist us in fixing our environment. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, physically remove us from bad environment. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, put us in good environment. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, put us in the environment of ulama, sulaha, and the people who are connected to you, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make us among the people who have so in-depth knowledge and such a strong foundation in your religion, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we influence others, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make us among the people who influence others, and don't make us among the people who get influenced, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, protect the iman of our progenies till the day of judgment. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give us death upon iman. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give all of us death upon iman. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give all of us Jannatul Firdaus. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give all of us Jannatul Firdaus. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, save us from hellfire. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, save us from the punishment of the grave. Save us from the punishment of the day of judgment. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make us among the people who enter Jannah without any questioning. And Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all the people who have passed away from our relatives, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, grant all of them Jannatul Firdaus. And Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all the people who are sick or injured, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, grant them shifa, grant them complete cure. And Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, enable us to join majalis and gatherings like this on a regular basis. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we intend on having this majlis on a monthly basis. Inshallah, we plan on inviting different scholars every month. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give all of us the ability and tawfiq to attend and benefit from these majalis. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alhamdulillah, recently we expanded this masjid, and alhamdulillah, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, allow more and more people to take advantage of this masjid. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rasulullah told us that masajid are the best place in a city, and Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yet masajid are empty, and Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the markets are filled with people. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, turn it the other way around. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give us tawfiq to fill the masajid, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and give us tawfiq to empty the markets, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you for all the things that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked you for, and Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we seek your refuge from all the things that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sought your refuge in. ومنا نسألك من خير ما سألك من نبيك وحبيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ونعوذ بك من شر ما استعاذ منه نبيك وحبيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم أنت المستعان وعليك البلاغ ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين آمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
لا إله إلا هو الرحمن الرحيم.